Let's do this a different way. I'm Emily, bitten by toxic dysphoria. I found my truest self as a trans girl. This is the Azura Media Club. Today, Across the Spiderverse. Let's go. Alright, so, we're talking about Across the Spiderverse, finally. I saw this movie twice, and, of course, last week I did Into the Spider-Verse, and, yeah, obviously I loved that movie. This movie is a mixed bag for me, and I do want to get into a lot of that, and my issues, and the things that I liked. First off, spoilers. I'm gonna just break down I'm gonna rip a hole into the whole movie. Not like ripping a new asshole. Just rip a hole into the whole movie, you know, like Spot. Like, spoilers. So, if you haven't seen the movie, go see it. I'd hate to be the one saying things that would spoil it for you, okay? Because I thought I got spoiled originally. I kind of did, like a little bit, but the thing I got spoiled about was kind of unconfirmed, so. But I'm definitely going to be talking about all this movie, so if you haven't seen it, get out of here. Go watch it. I mean, it's still worth watching, but the part of the problem is I forgot this was a two-part movie. I hate two-part movies, by the way. I've never seen them do an explicitly two-part movie that ever worked out. Harry Potter, the last two Harry Potter movies, the last two Twilight movies, all of those sucked. They were going to do the Hobbit movies as a two-parter, and then they didn't do that. They did 3 parts, and those still didn't do great. And then you're going to be like, well, all these sequels and whatever, but it's like, no, the movies that are like explicitly cut a movie in half and we're going to put it out in 2 parts, that concept is terrible, and it just leads to bad writing. It can be done well, like the last 2 Harry Potter movies were not great in my opinion, but it was all part of one bigger story. They still cut stuff, even though they had all this time to do it, which didn't make any sense to me. But, yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it was still 2 coherent stories. This feels like we took 2/3 of a movie, and then the last third we just kind of cut out. There's things that are not exactly... like, almost nothing is resolved by the end of the movie. And then also, they set up a lot of things that don't really go anywhere in this movie. They're gonna potentially go somewhere in the next movie. Especially at the end of the movie, they set up like this darker Miles, you know, thing. He's the Prowler. He's in the universe where, like... So there's like this whole thing where a spider came from this other universe to bite him. That's the spider that bit him. Was from a different universe, Universe 42. Earth 42, I guess that would be. So instead of that Spider-Man that Peter Parker is what they say in the movie, who would have gotten powers there, got powers. He didn't get powers, and Miles Morales got the powers because the spider crossed the Spider-Verse to go to Miles' planet, which is like 1600 something is his planet. So, yeah. And that all happened because there's this guy called Spot, who's this villain, who was like a random guy that was in the Collider thing. And I don't mind Spot that much. His motivations are a little odd. It kind of hit me as I was watching the movie. I was like, what is this guy's deal? He wants to become powerful because Miles Morales and Gwen Stacy, Spider-Gwen or whatever, called him a bad villain, like a villain of the week. He took that personally. He wants to be noticed by Spider-Man. He's also voiced by the guy who was the guy from Scott Pilgrim, the villain, Gideon Grey, and that, or Gideon Grey? No, that's from that book or whatever. Gideon from Scott Pilgrim. That guy. So, you know, and the whole time I'm, like, listening, and he's got, like, these, like, syndrome vibes, or, like, you know, his quips are kind of Ryan Reynolds-y, you know, in a way. But, yeah, it's like, he's just... what he does is he just like makes portals. Basically, he's like a portal gun guy, and he's got like all these spots all over him. Apparently, they cut two scenes, one at the beginning and one at the end, where he's in this bar or something with like a ton of other villains, which is something this movie distinctly lacked in comparison to the first one, is a rogues gallery of villains. It had plenty of spider people, sorry, all sorts of genders and races and varieties. There was like a T-Rex one and shit. Anyway, it had all sorts of spider things, people, creatures, a whole Spider-Verse of characters there. But the villains were distinctly lacking. There was only two villains. One specifically, but another one that can be interpreted as a villain for sure. And I think he's definitely meant to be set up that way. But, like the last movie had like 5, 6 villains. There were villains all over the place, There was like a blink and you'll miss it like one time Sand Slash looking villain on like a car train. There was the Vulture for a few seconds, but like he just kind of shows up and then he's gone, And the last one had like the Prowler, it had like Doc Ock, it had like, all sorts of Kingpin, all sorts of villains. This one kind of did when they went to the Spider-Verse like headquarters thing. But like also that concept like really confused me because it was like they were like, we sent these villains home, but then they're still there? Are they just holograms or something? Are they contained there? But they're like, we sent the villains back to where they needed to be? Because if they're actually contained there, that kind of ruins 2099's whole thing of like not messing with the canon, which we'll get into here in a bit. Anyway, villain-wise, Spot there, he starts off kind of harmless, but he just grows and grows in power as he starts going across the universes. He figures out he can do that, like make his holes go to other universes and whatnot. So he keeps going to these other ones and going to the chemical reactor things, the Alchemix, the chemical reactor, the universe reactor thing, that from the first movie. He keeps going and finding those and like using them to power himself up or something like that. But what's his deal, right? He wants to defeat Miles Morales, like, I guess, because Miles Morales did this to him. He created him by being there to destroy the Collider or whatever. Sure, okay, but that's a pretty weak motivation, isn't it? That's just pretty generic. But something I noticed that was kind of interesting, and this is just my headcanon, alright? So don't crucify me if it's not correct. Obviously, they're probably not going to do this. Although it would be very interesting if they did. That would be a whole nother level of representation if they did do this. But I noticed he said stuff like our world, and he said a lot of, I got a lot of vibes of like, this is our home, and I'm gonna... and the other thing is, he wanted to go and kill Miles Morales' dad, which is supposed to happen. That's a canon event, which is a whole thing, which I'll get into here in a bit. But he wanted to take everything from Miles Morales, because that's what he did, that's what the Spot did to him. I guess that's a pretty good motivation, but I also noticed this, like, weird sort of background thing, much like the other thing that I'm going to mention here in a second, the underlying the subtext, as I would say, there might be something more romantic there, in some kind of fucked up weird way. I mean, killing your partner's father isn't really something you would see as a romantic, but this guy's lost everything, but he keeps saying stuff that just makes me think, like, maybe he's into Miles, like, maybe that's like his deal, he is romantically interested in this guy, and he's because he keeps trying to better himself to be able to like defeat Miles or whatever, overpower him, is what it really comes down to. And that's definitely got some like domination subtext there, if you want to read it that way. And I know that sounds kind of ridiculous, but I was just sitting there, and things he said, like, some of the stuff, it kind of kind of pushed me to think in that direction anyway. Maybe that's just the shipper inside of me. I want everything to be gay, right? Not really. I don't. I mean, I love straight ships. I love gay ships too. Obviously, The Owl House is one of my favorite shows. That's got one of the best gay ships ever of all time, you know? But it's just something I noticed, alright? So, that's interesting. That's just like a teaser for the representation I actually want to talk about. But I do want to finish off on these villains here. So, because that's a big part of what I have to talk about with this movie, is the representation and the villains. The rest of the movie is a whole thing. Like, it's just... They go all sorts of places and do all sorts of things, and it's just this whole thing. Like, and I don't know how to judge a lot of that stuff because it doesn't get concluded, you know? It's meant to be concluded in the next movie, which feels pretty weak to me, you know? But I'm willing to wait and give that a chance, you know? Having seen the movie twice now, I went to see it again today because I wanted to give it the Super Mario Brothers treatment. I went and saw it in XD, you know, just like I did Super Mario Brothers. This one, it didn't really do much. There were other people in the theater with me, not that they, you know, impacted that at all. It did clarify a few things for me, I guess, or I just kind of was watching it and I kind of understood things better, or I could really see what was coming, because it's kind of sensory overload at a lot of times, and a lot of my friends said this too, but, yeah, it's really, like, cram-packed with lots of stuff happening, and especially with the animation style. I mean, I really liked the animation style in, like, the original movie and everything. I do think that they've improved upon the technology here, but I don't know if the usage of it was really better, in a sense, you know? I noticed my friend John was saying, like, he had, like, really weird, he couldn't, like, watch as much, like, or something, like, the Spider-Gwen parts were, like, less distinguishable for him. I actually thought that art style was, like, one of the best art styles of the movie. Maybe I'm just biased, because, like, Spider-Gwen, and she's, like, my favorite superhero, or whatever. But, you know, do you think Spider-Gwen's maybe one of my favorite superheroes? Used to be Superman, but I mean, like, that was a while ago, so I mean, you know. But I've always loved Spider-Man, too. That's always been one of the big ones for me. And you take Spider-Man and you make it, you know, Spider-Man a woman, and, I mean, hey, that's even better, right? You know. But not just any woman, you know. You make Spider-Man Gwen Stacy, you know, like, this other character in the Spider-Verse there. And there were other female Spider people in, Spider-Women, I guess I should say, in this movie, you know, like the pregnant one, which, hey, that's terrible parenting. I don't know how the fuck they got away with that. Like, not the people making it, but just like, the fuck? Like, who would actually be pregnant and be doing all of these stunts on, like, a fucking motorcycle and whatever, and be, like, chasing after this kid and doing all this shit? It's ridiculous, man. Like, that's awful. Like, no pregnant woman should ever be doing that. That's terrible parenting. And they even call that out in the movie. Peter B. Parker mentions that, because he's got a kid now, too, that he, like, also brings along for a lot of this dangerous shit. And it's just like, really, dude? Like, she barely even has, like, powers yet. Like, I think she doesn't even have powers yet. Like, no, well, she crawls on the stuff, so yeah, she does have powers, but, like, he had to make her a web shooter, too, so, like, she's basically Jack at this point, but without, like, all of the, weird morphing powers that Jack had, you know, like, that's so much more powerful than what this little baby is. She could definitely get killed or hurt. She's not going to, because this is a fucking, you know, what, PG movie or whatever. I don't know, is it PG? It probably is, because they said hell, like, once. Gwen was like, what the hell, at one point. They said shoot, like, 19 times, you know, in this one scene. Probably more than that, actually. It's probably, like, 30 or 40 times. All in this one scene. And I thought she was saying shit at first, but then, like, then it really makes it obvious that she's saying shoot the whole time. Like, so yeah, there's that. What else? Anyway, I want to get back to the villain stuff. So there's this guy 2099, Spider-Man 2099. I'm just gonna call him 2099 because that's what I've been calling him, like with my friends and stuff. He's from that year, I think. I think that's why. Yeah, like, so he's from the future, right? He's like the Spider-Man from the future or whatever. So here's the thing about 2099. All right, he runs this whole spider club of like every other Spider-Man and woman and dinosaur and horse and cat. There's a spider cat or something. Animated spider people, you know, Spider Ham. Like, they're all there in this club. He doesn't invite Miles because Miles is this anomaly. Because of the spider bite thing, because he's not supposed to have those powers because that's from another universe. That Peter was supposed to have them in that universe. Of course, there's the Peter Parker in this universe that died. So, you know, I mean, I don't know what he kind of expected to happen. Because he also had bad shit happen to him. Presumably, he lost his family. I mean, that's kind of what they're setting up there. And he hops between realities or whatever to get to a different reality where he is dead in that reality. He pulled a Scarlet Witch, basically. If you've seen Multiverse of Madness, Doctor Strange. Which is funny because they actually mention not the Doctor Strange, No Way Home in this movie also. Because actually last time they made one of these movies, I don't know that they mentioned like the Tom Holland Spider-Man at all. There's only like a very small mention of Venom too. He like goes to the Venom universe at one point, and they just like make a little joke out of it. There's no like actually Venom there, but which is odd. Me and my friends talked about a lot of this is stuff me and my friends talked about. So that they did that they played it that way. But anyway, I guess because at that point you're not Spider-Man, you're Venom or Spider-Woman or Spider-Gwen. You're just Venom at that point, you know, and then you're a villain. But they kind of skirt the line with a lot of the other ones. There's some rogue spider people in there as well. So yeah. But anyway, 2099 is this guy. He's kind of the other villain of the movie because what happened to him, like I said, he crossed over, he tried to live the life in the other universe, and then that didn't work out for him because that whole universe collapsed because he was there. Or something. Like that's if that's what happened, he has dedicated his life to trying to prevent that from happening anywhere else. So, but here's the thing about that. Here's what me and my friends kind of decided about that, right? He is actually the original anomaly, right? Because he's the one who went and started fucking with time. He was the original step out of his own, you know, reality to a different reality, and then he's basically got a reality destroyed. So anything after that, it's kind of his fault. He broke the canon first. He drew first blood on the canon. But he's blaming Miles. And I know Miles did later on break the canon in the India version of Spider... Maybe they're just in India? I don't know. Anyway, they're over there, and like he saves a guy. He saves one of the captains, which is a no-no because that's one of the canon events that always happens. There's always an Uncle Ben sort of situation where somebody dies. There's always a captain that dies. You know, like in Gwen's world, it's like her father, Captain Stacy, even though he quit. So we'll see what happens with that. In Miles' world, it's his dad, which is why he gets really pissed off and starts running and trying to go save his dad, which we never get any resolution on, so we don't know how that turns out until the next movie. All the resolutions in the next movie, so God, I wonder if that movie's gonna feel very resolution heavy, and then it's just gonna feel bloated with that. You know, it's not gonna feel like it has all the stuff that this movie has. I don't know. Anyway, so there's that, and then like it's just really odd because it's like that's one of the canon events, and then it's always like they always fall in love or something. Even Gwen mentions that at one point. Like Spider-Man always falls in love with Gwen Stacy. It's like, wait a second, but there's Mary Jane as well. You know, there are universes where there's a Gwen Stacy and then like also a Mary Jane. Like, you know, most of them. So like it's not always true that Spider-Man falls in love with Gwen Stacy. So that's also kind of confusing. Uh, Actually, on that one planet, he falls in love with a totally different guy, the Spider-Man from that planet. Not a guy, sorry. A totally different girl than Mary Jane or Gwen Stacy. So, I don't know. I guess that line's odd too. I don't know. There's a lot of odd things going on in this movie. So, yeah. Anyway, we'll get to that later because that's a whole other thing. This 2099 guy is actually kind of the problem to begin with. And he's trying to prevent Miles from doing the same thing by saving his dad, now that he knows about it. But also, how does that work? Because do they just induct everyone into this, like, thing after all of that happens? Like, every canon event has to happen and then they induct them in? Or apparently not, because Gwen is in there. Her dad hasn't died. She hasn't had one of those moments yet. She was worried about that. So why is Miles the only one? Just because he wasn't supposed to be Spider-Man? But if he wasn't supposed to be Spider-Man, then why did that happen? You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't make any sense. I don't know. It's odd. It's odd, and I hope they really explain all of this in the next one or whatever. I'm thinking that the reason the universe is well, and then the other thing he's saying is that like because they did the whole collider thing, which wasn't Miles's fault by the way. You know, obviously that was Alchemex or whatever who did that. Because of that, there's been holes ripping in like the universe or whatever. So, and then there's also this Spot guy who's also a direct, like, you know, product of this whole collider thing. So, it's really made a mess of things. And 2099's been trying to clean up as many universes as he can, but, like, it's just really difficult. But, like, he also doesn't want Miles to, like, be around. He just wants him to, like, be contained in this thing for a couple of days until his dad dies, because his dad is getting promoted to captain or whatever. But Miles doesn't have any of that. He uses his new electric powers to like break out of the barrier or whatever and just run off. That guy is just something else, that 2099. So we'll see how he goes about. But I think he's actually the original problem, and that's what me and my friends were saying, is that I think he's the reason that a lot of these, the multiverse is kind of crumbling to begin with. Not just because of this collider thing. I think he's blaming a lot of this on the collider thing, because it just doesn't make sense that that one event only was the thing. And then, wouldn't that event have happened in multiple different universes or whatever? Like, you know, like, which version of this are we on? Like, how does this work? Is it like, you know, every little action creates a separate universe? Because it sure doesn't seem like that. Because then you would be seeing, like, billions of clones of the same exact characters. As far as I know, we haven't seen a different Spider-Gwen. So that's interesting. And we haven't seen a different, like, Miles Morales, other than the one at the end. but he's not a Spider-Man. So is this like a thing where only one time they become that, or they just kind of live their lives normally or something? Like, how does that work? The logic of all of that is just fucking ridiculous and mind-blowing. This is why you don't do this shit in your movies. You don't open up multiversal shit because it's really complicated stuff. And in terms of storytelling, it's just a lot to keep up with. And that's what this whole movie feels like. You know, because they just try to do all of this stuff and they travel across all these different dimensions or whatever, and then so the whole thing is like Miles tries to get back home by using this big spider thing that like can send him back home, and he gets back, but he doesn't get back to his universe because the spider that bit him, his DNA was from the universe 42 where there is no Spider-Man, so he gets shifted back to that universe, which is odd. Also, Gwen breaks one of those like time wrist things at the end, dimensional thingies at the end, like, even though she has the one from Hobie or whatever. So like, why wouldn't she just keep that and then give that to Miles? Like once he, once she gets back to Miles, unless she's just gonna take him back to his dimension. I guess. I don't know. It's the whole thing. It's like, yeah, there's so many layers to this, It's like, there's so many questions that I can ask. Should I be asking them? I don't know. I don't know. Like, why? What's the significance? I don't know. So it's like, we don't know. And we're not qualified to be able to answer all of these questions yet. Because we have to wait till March to see the next movie. So, I will say, like, the parts of the movie that I really liked was, like, the beginning part. Because it starts off, like, we're in Spider-Gwen's universe, we're following her, and she's in the band, and then she quits the band because they're like, hey, you should talk to us about your problems, and then she's like, I don't want to talk about my problems. I joined this band to bang all of my problems out with the drums, or whatever. And they're like, that's not healthy. You shouldn't do that. And then she's like, well, fuck you guys. And she just runs off, basically. She doesn't say that, but, like, it's basically the vibe there. And she's, like, dealing with her dad and him not knowing that she's Spider-Gwen and all this stuff. And a lot of this stuff kind of is very, like, obviously an allegory for something else, And very relatable allegory for myself. So... And you see all these, like, lighting choices and all these color choices. And if you look at her suit... How did I never notice before? You can't really pick it up here. But this here is blue. These little lines here. That's pink. And this is white. And I know there's black here, but, like... And her shoes are blue, too. This is the trans flag right here. They actually even have, at the very beginning, a trans flag, like, literally on, I think it's her dad's coat or something. It doesn't show up there later, but it is very clearly, like, meant to be a reference, if not just actually the trans flag. I don't know, like, what it's obviously not the coat he uses all the time or something, or maybe it's her coat, but everyone's saying it's her dad's coat or something. But in that one scene at the beginning, it is the trans flag, and I will not hear otherwise. It literally is... Here, I have it with me. This, right here. It's literally this, without the words, obviously. So... Like, and I noticed that. I know my friends probably didn't, like, know that was what that was, and it was a blink and you'll miss it kind of thing. My friend John already had heard about the controversy from before, and I had heard about it. I had gotten spoiled on a picture that somebody had put in one of my groups that said, like, that she was trans, and I thought, oh, wow, so they're actually going to do this. And on my initial viewing... I was expecting that, and then it never happened explicitly. I mean, there were a lot of clues, like a lot of that lighting stuff, like a lot of her dialogue is very related to trans like stuff. Like it's like I can only be half of myself. There's like a scene later where she comes back to her universe, and she's talking to her dad, and she's like, I can only be like half of myself, and like all of this stuff that's like very, she can't be her authentic self. It's like it's very much exactly what I told like my mom when I came out to her, you know, stuff like that, you know, like, and that's how I feel like all of the time when I have to like boy mode it to everyone, you know, like I feel like I can only be part of myself, you know, and realistically not even most of myself at that point. Um, so I resonated with that because that definitely, and it's not just that, like there's literally in the background on her wall, and this is in the trailer or one of the trailers, and it says protect trans kids, and then there's stuff like that all over her parts of the movie, and like every time she's there, there's always like this lighting of blue and pink or just pink. She has pink in her hair now. Um, you know, like it's always there, like looking at you, and everyone's saying that like we're being the idiots because we, the trans people or whoever is saying that she is trans, you know, like based on all this evidence, are crazy and idiots, you know, basically. And every video I've watched that's not like by a trans person or somebody supportive, I've only seen like 2 or 3 videos that are actually like, you know, not by idiots. They're gonna call me an idiot, I'll call them an idiot too. Okay, maybe I shouldn't. Not by like, you know, people like conservatives or I guess or whatever. I don't want to make it political, but everyone else is making it political, so you know it's kind of a thing you have to do sometimes. Um, like they're all just super negative. Like even if they're trying to be fair, they're never fair. By the way, first of all, but they always say all these negative things. Like they'll just say like, "Oh, that's ridiculous." Or this is whine. They're little babies, you know, about this shit. I just want somebody to point out all of the evidence and then be like, I don't know, like maybe. And there are some good videos like that. There was a big podcast that Jessie Gender did about that and about the racial representation in this movie, which was good, which was really good. I definitely recommend that. That one has like a ton of stuff and a lot of like a ton of evidence and stuff. If you want all of the theory there, or you know, if you want everything there, I'm not gonna say it's a theory. I personally stand the, you know, trans Gwen, Spider-Gwen situation. I love it. I think that's great. I think fantastic. You know, I'm all for that because that's super good representation. These are big movies. That would just be really good. That would be really cool. I'm worried that they're gonna not do that and they're just gonna make it baiting it, you know. But that's how I felt on the first go through. Having seen that video, and there was it Lily Simpson, I think it is. She did like a similar video breaking that down. That was also a good video. Those are the only 2 I recommend so far of what I've seen about like trans Spider-Gwen. But that to me, when I centered myself, when I thought about it after I'd seen those videos, coming around on it, it's great that we have such nice, supportive representation in the movie. Even if she doesn't turn out to be trans, which is also ridiculous because most times if you have like a pride flag, if your dad has a pride flag on his jacket and he's not trans, like, who's he being supportive of? You know, the whole trans youth? I mean, we're in a world right now, it's kind of sad to say, but we're in a world right now where mostly the only people having these items you know, are trans people, you know? So, or somebody being supportive of trans people. And even then, that's not super likely. And everyone I've seen that has positive evidence on this agrees with that sentiment that it's not like you can't have these things if you're not trans, but like usually people have a reason for having those things around. If they're just super supportive of trans people, hey, that's really cool, and I'm all down for that, and that's great. That's super great. But there's so much evidence and allegory and metaphor there, and I know a lot of superheroes can be seen as a metaphor for something like being, making a transition and whatnot, taking that journey. The superhero struggles do parallel and cross over, but that's also why it's important, because we can tell these stories in an understandable manner, in a digestible manner that people can understand, because people understand superheroes, and they can understand the allegory through superheroes. Like, Stan Lee did that a lot in a lot of his, comics and stuff, it was like, what was the one from Mallrats? He's like, Doctor Doom is like, he's got all this metal armor, and underneath he's like tender or something. He's like a person underneath all of this armor. He has all this armor to protect from getting hurt again or something like that. Stuff like that. They're all like metaphors for stuff, They say Doctor Doom or they say Doctor Strange. Anyway, doesn't matter. You get what I'm saying. Like the Hulk, like, he has all this rage, but he's like also a nice guy. Like, I don't know, stuff like that. Anyway, point being, superheroes are metaphorical a lot of the times. Their struggles are meant to represent other things, And so I think there was like a Jessie Gender video on this too, like superheroes and queerness or something. I think it was about when Superman was bisexual or something. So yeah, like, that kind of representation is important. It's very similar to the Little Mermaid situation, like, I'm not gonna say that's a good movie, because everyone I've heard said it was bad, and I don't stand those Disney remakes anyway. I just hate all of the live action remakes, because they're just screwing up the old movies, but, that representation is great. I'm glad that's there. Black representation in that movie. That's great. I'm glad that's there. It's just the movie that sucks, So, it doesn't suck because of that. It just sucks, Similarly, this movie doesn't suck. I like this movie. It's good, but it's not amazing like the last movie. Like, the last movie, I gave a 10. Like, I'm not gonna give this one a 10. No offense to this movie, but, But then again, something I also heard in that podcast from Jessie Gender is that she had a lot of black people there too to talk about that representation, and they were all like, "Oh yeah, these things are very explicitly like things that like black people get, they know, or something, like that's good representation on that front." And obviously, being like a white girl myself, like, I don't know about all of that necessarily. So wait a second. Hold on a second. What the fuck? Wait a second. Nah. Okay. Wait. I just looked over. Look at this shit. I goddamn have the movie. It's right over there. Not the second one, obviously, but the first one. I knew I had the movie somewhere. I knew I fucking had it. How did I not? Of course I had it. What? That sucks. That should have been in the last review. Anyway, I looked over there and I'm like, wait a second, that's the movie. Anyway, so, I can't really comment on that. I mean, I don't know about all of that, but I'm glad. I'm glad there's that good representation there. In the same regard, the, oh, okay. The representation of trans people was good. Even if you know, Gwen isn't trans, you know, all the stuff, the pride stuff, the protect trans kids, all that kind of stuff, that's all a shout out to us anyway. And I think that's nice, you know, like that at least shows support for trans people, you know, like and at the end of the day, that's important, you know, regardless of whether or not that character is trans. Now, all of that stuff kind of leads me to think that that character is trans, you know, or somebody that we know in this universe. Maybe Peter Parker was the other kind of theory, is trans. But if you look at Spider-Gwen and her struggles, and then also... Oh, and by the way, like, the way I think about it is, like, her dad must know. She must have known this for a long time, and she kind of skewed herself in that direction, you know? We do see, like, a brief, like, really, really, really fast jumble of her over time. So, but that's all in her head, too. So, like, you know, it could be biased. But also, it's so fast, you don't really get to see, like, the time. And they could just change that, or they can, you know, or... I don't know. That's not necessarily evidence, is my point. And on this watch through, it's so fast that, like, I don't even think I can consider that, like, dispelling this whole thing, you know, like, oh, look, she was a little girl, you know, at this point. But it's like, even if that's a thing, like, maybe she realized early on or something, you know, I don't think there's a lot of compelling evidence against this, outside of the fact that, like, you know, studios don't usually do, like, trans people and stuff, and, you know, transphobia and whatnot, and it doesn't play well if you do that in your big budget movie or whatnot. But at the end of the day, in my heart, she'll always be, you know, trans, and she'll be a trans icon, and I'm here for it. I'm here for Spider-Gwen being trans, and I hope we can really go into that in the next movie, you know? I'm definitely here for that, you know? So, yeah. So that was great. Also there was, like, a thing where somebody was like, because, like, the dad says, like, that that Gwen killed her son, Peter, because that was, like, a whole thing. He thought that she killed Peter. But, like, the way he was saying it was, like, you know, like Spider-Woman killed my son or something like that. So, you know, it's, like, also a little bit like that kind of thing, like that reaction that a parent might have. And when she first reveals herself, like, by pulling off the mask at the beginning of the movie, like, he catches up to her at, like, a villain thing. The Vulture from a different universe is there, and she, like, rounds him up, and that's when, like, 2099 and Spider-Woman, the pregnant one, like, come in for the first time. But then she gets caught and cornered, and he's, like, got a gun pointed at her. She, like, pulls off the mask to show him that it's her. And he, like, doubles down on it. He's ready to arrest her and stuff. He obviously comes around later in the movie when she leaves, and then she comes back later. But yeah, he, like, doubles down on it and is ready to arrest her. And a lot of what's going on in that scene is very much also an allegory or a metaphor for, like, what a bad coming out to your parents would be like, what a forced coming out could be like, in a sense. You know, before your parents, like, really have time to consider all the things that you're saying or whatnot. Like, sometimes people get caught in the act of, you know, just being themselves, and then they have to explain themselves. And so the parent is, like, rationalizing all of this thing in their head, and they're scared, you know, like, and the kid is scared, and they have a negative reaction to it. And even if they're supportive later, that initial moment can be bad. Or, it just goes bad. And that scene was kind of representation of what a bad coming out would be like. I've feared that sometimes. I still haven't told my dad or my brother about me and my situation, and it very much could go like that. They're not going to have a gun pointed at me and try to arrest me, but I mean, it could be bad news, I think we'll be supportive eventually, but, in that initial moment, it could be bad news kind of thing, so we'll see how that goes. Anyway, yeah, so I think there's a lot of trans stuff there with Gwen, and I like that. I like her character in this movie. I don't like how she kind of betrayed Miles, but I mean, I guess that kind of had to happen. She kind of comes around by the end. There was, like, people saying that she's, like, using every black person in her life for advantage or something. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that analysis of the situation. Again, I'm not super versed in, all of that, but, like, I don't know. I just think that's an odd read of the situation, She didn't really try to take advantage of Miles Morales. She just wanted to be his friend, and then maybe potentially more. There's a great scene, yeah, so I mean, like, that's what I was trying to say, is like that, I got sidetracked on Spider-Trans, Spider-Gwen trans stuff. The beginning of the movie, the whole Spider-Gwen part is great, and then when she goes and visits Miles, and even the stuff with him in the spot, that's all great. I like all of that. That's really good. Because we're still focused, at this point. We're still not, like, ripping a hole into this and just, like, opening it up wide, and I'm supposed to be paying attention to all this other stuff. That's still fine. We're still contained here. And then, she comes to visit Miles. He has, like, this whole thing, like, this whole... He's trying to figure out his future kind of thing. That's, like, him. And like, his parents are there. And there's, like, this counselor lady they're trying to figure out the future for. He wants to go to this other school than they want because he wants to study, like, quantum realms and, like, trying to cross the multiverse and whatnot, obviously to go see Gwen, probably. Because at this point, he still thinks he's never going to see her again. He's got, like, all these drawings in his book, and stuff. So, but, like, his parents don't exactly understand what's going on with him. There's, like, a whole party, they're having for the dad there. Actually, he even gives him his advice as Spider-Man, and, like, for some reason he says that he looks like his son. I don't... I think that's just an awkward line because, like, what if you know that he looks like your son, wouldn't you just confront your son and be like, "Hey, you're Spider-Man"? If you're that close to figuring it out, like, why would you not figure it out? You know what I mean? It's like some miraculous Ladybug shit, like all the times that they should have figured out their secret identities in that show. Anyway. So that's weird. I don't like that line. I think that line's dumb and bad. It's just a bad writing line right there. But anyway, he actually gives him advice as Spider-Man, like, go easier on the kid. Maybe you gotta, like, I don't know, listen to him, see what's up, like, kind of thing. Listen to what he wants, kind of thing. So they try to confront him because they know that he's lying about stuff. But they do this a couple of times in the movie. His parents, by the way, that's who I'm talking about, and Miles Morales. They try to ask him, like, hey, what's going on? What's the deal? Like, why all of this? Why do you have to constantly leave all of the time? You're missing all these classes and stuff. And he wants to tell him that he's Spider-Man a bunch of times. Of course, he's also afraid. It's kind of another sort of trans allegory thing. I'm not saying he's trans, but, it's kind of within that metaphor still also is, like, a coming out thing. It's not even a trans thing. It's just, like, a coming out thing, like, So, yeah, but his parents call him out in front of everyone, and that's kind of also, I mean, like, for a coming out thing, you don't just want to say it in front of everyone, and I've been in that scenario myself, like, I actually had a time where one of my friends called me out on it, uh, and I basically had to shut him down, like, I did lie, but it's like, I wasn't ready at that point, and it was months and months and months late, way down the line later when I actually started doing stuff with it. Uh, so yeah, you don't want to be called out in front of everyone. And then, so they ground him. He goes to his room. Then he sees Spider-Gwen, or whatever, briefly. And they go out as the Spider-Gwen and, Miles Morales, Spider-Man, and all that. Um, and it's nice, and it's a good little chunk of the movie there. It just doesn't last, is the problem, Like, I want to see more of that, but, the movie doesn't want me to see more of that. So they have a nice little moment where they're on these ledges on top of this bank, and they're hanging upside down. I love how Gwen keeps, like, tying up her hair into, like, a ponytail, and then, I love that hairstyle, first of all, like, for her, like, and then she, like, when she falls upside down, it's like, it, like, flips over. Oh my god, it's so cute. I love that. Um, Also, her dance, like, she has like a coat, but like also a dress sort of thing. It's kind of like Lou's, actually. Like, I thought that was great. I loved that. Like, she's always so different. That's great. Also, how Peter Parker was like the lizard. I think it's like the comics. I am glad I actually read some of these comics beforehand. I think I only got to like here or something. I didn't get all the way through them, but I'm gonna reread them and maybe talk about them on the channel and stuff. But like, I'm glad that I read those because that all was familiar to me. I knew about that stuff, and I can't say the same for like all of the Spider-Man and all of this other referential stuff. I know a lot of people like knew all of that stuff, but like even my friends didn't know that stuff, and those guys are nerds. Like, no offense to you guys, but like my friend Jameson and my friend John, they like know all of this stuff. Not like all of this stuff. They know a lot of this stuff, and I don't fucking know anything about. Um, I'm very mainstream when it comes to this stuff. So, like, I don't really delve into comics because it's such a huge thing. I don't know where to start. I've read some Batman. I've read some Spider-Man. I've read some of this stuff, obviously. I don't know. I've read a little bit of some other things, but that's about it. But if I was gonna jump into something, it would definitely be like Spider-Man. But I thought, hey, Spider-Gwen, hey, that's cool because it's still self-contained or whatever. I don't know. Are they still making Spider-Gwen comics? Like, I know this series specifically is over, but like, maybe there's still more. I don't know. But anyway, Superman. I read some of his stuff too. But anyway, point being, what was I trying to say? Yeah, I love that scene where they're like hanging upside down, and then that's when she's like, "Oh, Gwen Stacy always falls for Spider-Man or whatever," and she's like, "But we're different or whatever," and I'm like, "Oh man," she like friend zoned him. I know, like, I don't like to say that, but that's what it felt like in the theater when I was watching it. I'm like, "Oh man," so she's turning him down big time. She's like, "Yeah, we're just friends," but then she's like something, she says something, and then he's like, well, there's a first time for everything, and she's like, yeah, she smiles at that, and she kind of like leans over on him and like, oh, it's like, it's cute. I understand they don't have to necessarily end up together either. That's fine. She had a thing for this Hobie guy. I still don't really know a lot about him. He's anti-establishment. That's all I really know about him. Because he doesn't really tell us a lot about him. He just talks about all of his, like, anti-establishment shit for a little bit in his little comic intro thing there. And then he just is contrarian the whole time. And then he's not really in most of the movie. But, like, Gwen apparently went and crashed with him. After she left, her own dimension. which can be seen as like another kind of allegory thing, you know, like when parents kick LGBTQ kids out and you go crash with your friend kind of thing. Um, so yeah, like I guess they were a thing. Like that's kind of what's implied. So and that makes sense. She's kind of like a rocker chick, and he's kind of like a rocker guy, you know. So it's like, yeah, so that's cool. But I don't know. I still don't know much about that guy. Like, he's such a minor, not minor, but he's just a small character in like a much bigger, grander thing. He only gets a little bit of screen time, you know. In the last movie, there was like 6 spider people, right? And they all got like pretty good screen time. I mean, they didn't all get stuff to do, but I felt like Gwen kind of got sidelined too. I'm glad they actually did more with her in this movie because she's great, and I remember her making such a big impact on me then. Probably just because she was such a positive female character, and I've resonated and identified more with female characters for a long time now, since probably high school, you know, and seeing that was great, and you know, I mean, obviously that had a whole different context of why I have identified with female characters for so long, but I didn't know that then. So I mean, I kind of anyway. Point not relevant. Point being, that was a nice scene because they're like hanging down and they see like the upside down city and stuff. I thought that was just really neat. Super cute, super good. But it's not meant to last. She, you know, he goes back to the party. Actually, she is there too, and then she meets the parents. They made a line earlier about how like the parents hate it when people use their first names, and she calls them both by their first names. So like, you know, it's kind of funny, but it's also kind of like, oh my god. And then it's like, she actually comes back and talks to him later and tells him like, hey, you don't know how much Miles like really does love you guys and cares about you guys and all of that, and so yeah, so that's cool. Um, and then from there, it basically just devolves into like a Spider Verse thing, like um they're trying to track down the Spot guy, and eventually they end up at the HQ. They don't get to him. I mean, they keep chasing him. But that's when Miles like goes to that other. They go to that other universe, and then he like stops the canon event thing, and then they go to the HQ, and then like they're all like marveling at all the spider people there and stuff, and then like they go to 2099. He explains the whole situation, like you're the anomaly, like, you know, fuck you, basically, like you weren't supposed to be Spider-Man. Um, Even though like I explained earlier, he like did all of that, so like whatever, you know, like he was also selfish and stuff. And then there's this like huge chase scene. I did time it out this time. I thought it was like a lot longer than it was. It feels like it goes on for forever. It's like a 15-minute chase scene. Not even really. It's like 12 minutes or something, but it just takes forever. For fucking ever, this chase scene. Um and it's kind of cool. It's just really an excuse for them to make a lot of references to other Spider-Men that I have Spider people that I have no idea who the fuck they are, you know, or barely tangential knowledge of them, kind of thing. It's more for the fans, like the big fans. There's jokes and stuff in there, and there's little scenes where, like Peter B tries to convince him, like, hey, you gotta turn yourself in or whatever. And then there's like at the very end of it, it's like, I mean, 2099 is just like rage filled, man. He's just like, he like pins him down. He's like, you fucking asshole, you're not supposed to exist. You can't exist or whatever. And he lets it loose that like Gwen and or no, Peter B, I think, lets it loose that Gwen and him, he's like, this isn't what we talked about, you know, you shouldn't be doing this. And then Miles is all like, you talked about this, like, and he feels very betrayed, as he should. That that, like, they were even helping him to begin with, because he thought, like, oh, these are my friends or whatever. I thought it was odd how in the intervention scene, like, before all of that, before the chase, there was no Spider-Man Noir or the Spider-Ham. They only come in, like, later in the movie. Spider Noir is only at the end, and then the Ham, it was only in, like, a brief thing where he's, like, in the other universe and he's, like, seeing brief parts of his past and all that. Just weird. I don't know. Anyway, oh yeah, and there's this whole scene where Miles, like, tells his mom that he's Spider-Man. And if you do pay attention at the beginning of the movie, I didn't, like, really realize this, but if you pay attention at the beginning of the movie, his mom, but also this is all in Miles's head at the beginning of the movie too. His mom is, like, talking about Spider-Man, um, like she's watching him on the news or something, but again, that's in Miles's head. So maybe she actually doesn't know who Spider-Man is. But in the other universe there is no Spider-Man, and that's why she's like, "Oh, who's Spider-Man? That doesn't make any sense," and blah blah blah. But he finally tells, like, his mom that he's Spider-Man, but it's not his mom. You know, it's a different version of his mom. So from a different universe. So a universe in which there is no Spider-Man. We all thought it was a joke at first, and I still thought there was, you know, a last third of the movie, and we were kind of ramping towards it. But, like, right after that, and, like you see Gwen, like, assemble a team, and then, like, right after, that's when the movie fucking ends. And I could tell by the music, this is over. And I'm like, oh my god, they're not actually fucking doing this. And then I remembered, this is a two-part thing, and I hate that. So, anyway. Yeah. Is that it? Did I talk about everything? I think that was it. Like, what else is there to talk about? Well, okay, so at the end of the chase scene, and then he's like, uh, he's like, gets betrayed or whatever, and he's like, nah, you know what? Everyone keeps telling him, telling me how to, like, live my life and what I'm gonna be doing, and he's like, I'm gonna do my own thing, you know? So I thought that was kind of nice. So, yeah, and I think that's gonna probably turn out fine. I don't know. I think that's gonna kind of be the message of the next movie, I guess, is that, like, you know, even when people are telling you this is your destiny or whatever, you just kind of got to do your own thing, you know? Just say fuck them, basically. That, and you know what, actually, that would really resonate with, uh, the Hobie guy. I mean, yeah, that's kind of his whole mentality. That would resonate with Gwen's transgenderness, you know? They could definitely reveal that in the next movie, and then that would be, like, a good sticking point to the theme there of, like, hey, this makes sense because that's how you feel. Like, society is telling you you need to be a man, but you're not a man. You never were a man. You never felt like you were a man, you know? Like, you're a woman, you know? Like, that's... I assume that's the direction we're going with the whole Spider-Gwen thing. The only reason I don't think it would go the other way is because her dad already knows. So, if she was hiding being trans-masculine, why would he have the pride thing? And then why would he also... It would be a little obvious because of, like, all of the trans representation around, right? Or they would just be, like, super supportive of trans people? I don't know. And the other thing with that gets me is because she doesn't tell ever... Like, even if it was just her dad, like, doing that, like, you know, like, she wanted different pronouns, like, she wanted she, or even... Or, sorry, he, or even, like, non-binary, like, they, them kind of thing. She would definitely make sure, like, you know, Miles Morales and, like, all of them, the other people and, you know, animals and whatever out there, and the spider people, she would make sure they were using the correct pronouns. So clearly she prefers her pronouns, which definitely means she's trans feminine, at least in my analysis of this situation. So yeah, I mean, so her dad has to already know. So it's not about that. It's about, I don't know. I don't know what it's about. Like everyone already sees her as a woman. So like, I guess the real coming out is to tell people that she's trans, I suppose, or she doesn't have to. I don't know. I would like it to be explicitly kind of shown though. That would be nice. Just or like Jessie Gender said, even if you just like put a photo somewhere that's like, oh look, this was her as a masculine kid or something. Like, I don't know. I'd like somebody to actually say it or be explicit about it. They're probably not going to do that, but I want that. That would complete everything if that, and that would make for a stronger narrative and theming and stuff too if you actually just went with it. It's so ridiculous that we have to be so picky and not picky, like choosing. We can't just do what we want to do. This is kind of the theme we're getting at here. We can't just make the art that we want to make because people don't like that. You know, people aren't always supportive of trans people, so having them in art is a problem for some people. But that's what makes the message so great, is that, and especially if, oh my god, it's like a whole meta level too. There's a lot of meta commentary in this movie too, by the way. Like, there was some line about the algorithm. Like, the algorithm states that Uncle Ben has to die every time. The captain has to die every time. And Miles Morales is like, the algorithm? Fuck the algorithm. We're gonna do our own thing. It's basically like a commentary on the movie, how they're like, you know, how they keep subverting the older Spider-Man tropes, which is great. I mean, that's what Miles Morales is all about. He's the Black Spider-Man. I don't want to categorize him as the Black Spider-Man, but I mean, that's the representation that he is, you know, and so like, you know, he's already bucking trends of Spider-Man, you know, prior. He's not Peter Parker. He's not, you know, he's not the same person as all of the other ones. He is his own thing. And I think that's why Spider-Gwen is so cool too, is because she's her own thing, you know? And even if she's trans, like, who cares? You know, that's great. That's even better representation. My point being that her being trans and just, you know, basically using it as a big middle finger to society, would be totally A, in line with her character, B, Hobie would like that a lot. So if she's going to end up with him, which I don't think she will, I think she's probably going to end up with Miles. That's kind of what we've been implying this whole time. And if they don't, that's fine too. They're great as friends. And it really works with her character, and I think it would really work with all of her fears and doubts that she's been having in this movie. That would be the ultimate ending place for her, would be, I am comfortable with myself, and I don't care that everyone knows that I'm trans, because that's great, you know? I'm not hiding it anymore, you know? I'm gonna be my most authentic self, and I'm gonna be Spider-Woman when I want to be, and I'm gonna be, you know, I'm just gonna be me, you know? And I think her bucking all of that anxiety and just saying, fuck the establishment, you know, fuck whoever cares, fuck everyone who's a hater, you know, that would be the ultimate trans thing. And just coming out as trans, that would be great. That's what I want, because I can relate to that, you know? Not just because I can relate to that. I just think that would be really good representation. That's exactly how I feel a lot of the time. You know, I am scared. I am scared of what people think a lot of the time, and I always think I'm gonna run into somebody bad, you know, especially when I use the women's bathroom or something. But like, it hasn't happened yet. I'm sure it will happen at some point, obviously, but most people out there are really nice, that I've run into so far about this. I maybe I just have the advantage of like passing, I feel like I do sometimes. Um, I do put effort into this, I'm not even in like full. But anyway, the whole point of these channels is to just be casual. So I'm doing my best, but it's like I don't even have any like makeup on or anything, like so. Point being that I would probably back down. Maybe I don't know. I've never been in that situation. I don't want to cause problems. That's not what I'm doing, and I don't think I don't know. I don't know if she wants to either. But my point being that my mentality is still, regardless, the mentality inside of me is I'm gonna be who I am, and I'm gonna go out there, and as long as I'm just me being me, living my life. Who gives a shit, right? Um, and that's how it should be, honestly. And that's what I think Gwen is gonna figure out too, and that's what's gonna really um, propel her, level her up to the next level, and she's just gonna be okay with being trans, and it'll be fine, And she'll be okay with being Spider-Woman, and like most people knowing that and whatever. So, excuse me, by the way. Yeah, so that would be great. I want to see that. Anyway, so I mean, I'm gonna wrap this up because, like, as much as I didn't like this movie as much as the first one, because I thought the first one was a much tighter experience, more self-contained. It had a smaller cast and used its characters better, developed its characters better. It didn't, really. The pacing was much better, like a lot of that kind of stuff. It just was a great origin story, the first one. This one is still good, and I do like it, but I feel like the pacing was just all over the place. The constant cutting back and forth. We didn't really do a lot of that in the original. They did a little bit of that, but like it was usually pretty straightforward what you were witnessing, and they didn't really like chop between art styles as much. This is like a whole fever dream of that. Like it's sensory overload. There's like so many different art styles and stuff. They did it a little bit in the first one, but it's like here it's like constantly like all the fucking time. So it's like, it's a much more all over the place kind of movie, which I don't know. Some people might really like that. For me, I liked it, but it was a lot. It's a lot to handle. The first one does still kind of feel like a lot sometimes, but it's just the way it was done and the way it was written. The dialogue and the pacing is just snappy. Everything about it is just so on point, maybe that's how I feel about this movie with some time to resonate on it, or sit on it, it'll resonate with me is what I was trying to say. And obviously once the third movie comes out, I'll have a lot more context for what's going on in this movie, but, at the moment, that's kind of a thing. The uncertainty of all the 2099 stuff and the Spot stuff and just a lot of the little points in this movie that don't get resolved. The family stuff with Miles, the Spider-Gwen trans stuff, stuff that'll all probably be resolved in the next movie. But the fact that this movie didn't resolve some of that stuff or just kind of put a cap on it or something, I don't know how you do it, but you just don't do it like this. You have to... If this was a trilogy, right? And it is a trilogy, but if it was built as a trilogy, like, it's a 3-part movie, It's not just 2 parts after the origin story, which is what this feels like. Um, that would be understandable, but it's not like that, which is weird. So it's like there was a first movie, and then they made 2 other halves of a whole movie. You know, like it's really odd. And that's going to be a trilogy, you know? So and then apparently they're done. I mean, I hope there's like a Spider-Gwen spinoff or something. So just the way that was done and the fact of that made this feel like a less complete movie in a sense. And I know there's a lot of people out there saying like, no, that's not really it. It feels complete or something, but there just wasn't a lot of resolution to stuff. And so yeah, but I do like a lot of the aspects of the movie. It's just a lot of it takes a lot of thinking about and is kind of unclear because we don't have the full picture yet. So we'll see how it goes. I mean, in terms of animation, like I said, it's stylistically all over the place, but like I like it. I mean, it's still well animated. It still is quality animation. I found that a lot of the, like, I think they did a lot in the first one too, but like a lot of the mannerisms, like, there's a part where Miles like says whatever to something, and his mom just has like this expression like, what the fuck did you just say? Kind of I can't do it, but like it was very expressive, and I'm like, wow, that's like very realistic there. Like that's like, wow, that's, I mean, it's like, it's an extreme reaction, but it's like very realistic sort of reaction. I don't know how to explain it. It was cool though. I just saw that and I'm like, that's very detailed. That's very cool. You know, that they can do stuff like that now. So I applaud stuff like that. The soundtrack I don't feel like was as like good as the original. The original like really stood out. This one was like muted in the background kind of. I don't know. It wasn't as memorable, I guess. I do like the focus on multiple different characters. It's not just all Miles Morales this time in his story. He was only like, I don't know, like 30% of the movie maybe. Maybe more, maybe like 40%. I don't know. But like Spider-Gwen had like a good chunk of time in the movie. She's the first, you know, several, like maybe 10 or 15, 20 minutes. I don't know. She's in there for the first like a lot of time. And then she has her own big part later. She's kind of the other main character, which is great. I mean, that's what I want because she is awesome, and so I really like that. I do like Miles, kind of where he's going. I like how he's standing up for himself and trying to do his own thing and whatnot. I like that direction. I just want to see that be resolved. You know, that's really the main issue with the movie is just nothing gets resolved. It's just all kind of set up, you know, which just doesn't feel good to not have that resolution, you know. But like everything else about it was good, I guess. I don't know. I just have a lot of problems with like the multiversal sort of stuff. It's just very confusing, and there's just a lot of stuff in all of that stuff that it takes a lot of really hard thinking. Whereas in the first movie, it was pretty self-apparent what was going on. There's not a lot of deep digging to kind of do. I don't know. Maybe that's an advantage to this movie, but like makes you think about it a lot more for sure. But in terms of representation as well, I mean that was great. Obviously more LGBTQ representation. By all metrics, what those people were saying in that podcast, more black representation too, and I agree that's in there. So yeah, but I mean, yeah, it was all just great. Not great. I mean, it was all good. There were some great moments. There were great parts to the movie, but as a whole, you know, whereas the original was great all the time, Even the cringy scene with the hair thing, that was the hardest part to watch, but it was still there, you know. But they had like reoccurring jokes like that too, like the hey thing. There is nothing like that in this movie. Like not as much anyway. I feel like this movie tried to take itself way more seriously too. There were serious parts in the first one, and a lot of serious moments in the first one, but I just felt it was more well done. I don't know. I guess this movie felt like a lot of explaining, of stuff. And I still just we're still not to the point they're gonna drag this into the ground, into the fucking finale probably of the last movie, where he gets to tell his family that he's Spider-Man. Like, seriously, oh my god. He's stuck in another dimension. Like, I know that's probably gonna get resolved at some point in the next movie, but like, it's probably gonna take way too long to do. I don't know. Why would they just have him there and then have that not be a big thing? Like, I don't know why I need to care about that dimension. Like, other than the fact that he should, according to 2099, feel guilty about, how that all played out with the Peter Parker there or whatever. I don't know. I don't know what the significance of over there is or whatever. But we'll see. We'll see what happens in the next movie, I mean, at the end of the day, I think I'm going to give this movie just like a solid 7.8 out of 10. I think that's a good thing. I could give it like an 8, but like that feels pretty high. Like, it's a good movie. It just is flawed, and I think a lot of those flaws weigh it down. And a lot of those flaws are just dependent on the fact that it's a 2-part movie, which really sucks. And it's longer, and they just kind of hold on a lot of shots sometimes, which was kind of grating. On the second watch through, that wasn't as egregious. I thought it really dragged out in the original watching for some reason. Some of those scenes just like really dragged, but they all felt pretty good. It was weird because there were certain moments where I wish they would have held on it longer and they didn't, but then they just had other moments where they held on stuff a while. I don't know. We'll see how the next one does. I mean, I'm going to give it a 7.8 out of 10. I did like it. So, yeah. Anyway, until next time, hit that subscribe button, stick around, join the Bad Girl Coven. That's what I'm going to call our fan base now, our subscriber base there. We're the Bad Girl Coven. So, yeah. You're welcome if you want to join the Bad Girl Coven. Like the song. Anyway, go check that out if you haven't seen that song. The Meelz, M-E-E-L-Z, Bad Girl Coven, from the Owl House there. We're the Azura Media Club, so we have to be the Bad Girl Coven, of course. But anyway, subscribe if you want to be part of the Bad Girl Coven. And until next time, just remember that magic comes from the heart.